Hello, this is Kristen from Crossing Timbers Equine. Today in this video, we're going to go over the best way to go through and brush and clean up your horse's mane and tail. When brushing out our horse's manes and tails, we've got a number of different tools that we can use. We've got a regular brush, or we've got two different kinds of mane combs. One's got a handle, one is just the comb. Whichever one you prefer to use, it doesn't matter. Some of these are going to work better on a thin mane. Some of them are going to work better on a coarser mane. It all depends on your preference and what your horse's mane works best with. You can also go to any store and buy any sort of a human brush and use that as well. Hair is hair, so it doesn't matter what kind of brush you're going to use. After you've decided what sort of brush or comb to use, the next thing to figure out is if you need any leave-in conditioner to put in that mane to help you get the knots out or get it cleaned up. Now, this is Gidget here. She is my 23-year-old Arabian mare. I've had her since she was a 2-year-old. If you can see here, she's got melanoma. So she is retired and she just gets to hang out in the pasture and eat all day. She lives the best life ever. But this lovely mane of hers gets a ton of fairy knots in it. Now it doesn't take long. It's fairly windy where we are here. So it does not take long for the fairy knots to get put into her mane. So whenever I clean up her mane, I'm always going to use some sort of a leave-in conditioner to help me work through those knots and clean everything up. I make a 50-50 blend of baby oil and Listerine. The baby oil helps coat the hairs and makes it easier to slide through and get the knots undone. And then the Listerine acts as a disinfectant if she's got any cruddy ruddies, especially we're coming into winter, so dry skin, it helps take care of some of the cruddy yuddies that might possibly be there. So I'm going to start off by giving her mane a little spritz. I want to make sure I get the underside as well as the top. I don't want to overly put too much in, just enough to help me get everything worked through. I can always add more later if I need to. Then I'm going to grab my comb. For Gidget's mane, the comb works the best. With these fairy knots, usually there's a spot right at the bottom where you've got 2, 3, 4 knots that are connected all together to make one big knot. So I'm going to start at the bottom of her mane and work through finding where these knots are connected, where this hair is woven in with each other, and work it on through. If I need to add more baby oil, I'm going to add more. I'm not afraid to give things a little bit of a tug and a pull because some of these knots show up because they have dead hair. Just like when you brush your hair in the morning, whether you've got long hair or short hair, you're going to lose some hair. Our bodies shed hair every day, so do horses. If that dead hair gets stuck in, then that means that it's going to make that knot worse. So you're going to find that after working through some of these knots, you might have a pretty decent pile of hair down on the ground underneath them. So I've got one knot worked out there, working on finding the other knot. The baby oil works really well. I find that it helps slide everything through. I say that as I get stuck on a knot. That's an extra piece. So you just want to take your time, work your way through the knots. As long as you're patient, there is no knot that you can't get out. If your horse's mane is full of burrs, use baby oil, Show Sheen, kids leave-in conditioner, any sort of that stuff you can use in order to get the knots out of their manes or their tails. The baby oil or Show Sheen will help also coat their hair, so it should stay knot free for a little bit longer. It's not going to last forever, but it'll stay for a little bit longer. Now, as you can see, I'm working my way through the bottom of that knot. I'm not starting at the top up here. I'm starting at the bottom, working my way through, finding where that hair is attached to the other hair, and working it and sliding it all the way up and through. It might end up where it looks like a little bit of a bigger mess. Before then, a lot of times, it will slide. And of course, this one is going to prove me wrong. But it will slide and come out and come undone. You're being a good girl, aren't you, Gidge? She's used to spending a lot of time standing here, getting her mane undone. Honestly, I don't trim her mane all that often, so the longer it gets, the more knots it gets, the quicker it gets knots in it. We just had a rash of 30, 40 mile per hour winds, so that really did a number on her hair. And I said thank you to the fairies for giving me a really good project to show on the video about how to work through and work these out. If you've got enough patience and enough time, you can work out any knots. If your horse doesn't stand as well as Gidget, that they get a little antsy-pantsy, they want to move, they're dancing around, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, however long that they'll stand still and work on their mane. Then take them for a short little walk. Give them something to do, let them move their feet. If you've got some sort of an arena, let them loose, let them run for 5-10 minutes, then catch them, bring them back, and continue working on their mane. If their mane is there that bad, and I've seen some pictures out there, I've had some horses here too, where they have a ton of burrs and it's like an all-month project. But if that's what it takes to preserve their mane, then that's what you need to do. You just have to have some patience to work everything through. So now here I've finally gotten the worst of that fairy knot undone. And you can see how it spun in through here. Again, that's a couple of different sections that are spun together. So if you can separate, it's almost like a braid. If you can separate all the little spots that are spun together, the whole thing should come loose. And again, I've got that baby oil and Listerine in here to help things through. That Listerine helps make them smell nice and fresh. I don't remember what flavor I used in this bottle. It smells like original Listerine. And always, always, every time, I'm starting at the bottom and I'm working my way up to the top. If I start at the top and pull, all it's going to do is knot right on top of a knot. So we want to work those knots out from the bottom and then work your way up. Do not have any fingernails, which does make this process a smidge harder, because if you've happen to have fingernails that you can reach down and through, that kind of helps sometimes to separate that hair out and get it all nice and clean. There we go, we're getting this one. I know this is a little bit like watching paint dry, but it is a very slow process, especially when you've got, see there it came apart, see that one spindle came apart there, and then that came through there. So then she's just got these little curly cues in through her mane. So I'm going to give her another little squirt of the baby oil and Listerine. If you would happen to use the baby oil and Listerine, you want to make sure you shake that bottle up to remix the baby oil and Listerine. The bottle's not spraying the greatest. There we go. Get a little underneath. Good girl. Good girl. So now that I've got the big knots worked out, now I'm going to start at the front of her mane, and I'm going to work my way from the bottom up to the top. Again, I want to, any knots that I have in there, I want to work out, push them to the bottom, and then come up to the top. Now obviously, as you can tell, Gidge thinks having her mane brushed is like the best thing in the world. So she will stand here all day long. She's had a lot of students braid her mane, brush her mane, and she is a fantastic little girl to stand there and do that. So now this section didn't have any knots in it, and with a couple of little spritz from the baby oil and Listerine, I can run my comb all the way up and through it. Now this section here has a knot in it, but I'm going to approach it the exact same way, and I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up to the top, all the way through. There. Little bit of patience, little bit of help from the baby oil and Listerine, and now her mane is nice and smooth and brushed out. It's got a little bit of a perm here in it in the middle from where that big knot was, but that'll smooth out within a day or two. And then her hair will be all nice and smooth for a while until that baby oil either washes out from the rain or wears out. So that is going through, brushing their mane and getting all of those lovely knots out and making Gidge a beautiful little girl. Now that we've got Gidget's mane all brushed out and pretty, now we're going to clean up her tail just to finish out the picture so she can be pretty out in her pasture. Whenever you are brushing or combing a tail, please remember to always, always, always stand off to the side. You don't ever want to stand directly behind a pony, because if they were to happen to spook or go after a bug in the summer, they could catch you with their hind feet. So you always want to be aware of where you're standing and keep an eye on their head, what their ears are doing, what they're listening to, so that if something does catch their attention, you can be aware enough to maybe step away, give them some space, and then come back. When getting ready to do her tail, I've already sprayed it with the Listerine and baby oil. So I'm going to reach through, grab her tail, and I'm going to pull it here off to the side. Now, I don't mind getting my jeans dirty. If you do, you can pull it out here and hold it out here. I like to put it up against my leg because it helps to have a little bit of pressure, to have something for that tail and that comb to push against to slide through. Again, I'm going to start at the bottom of the tail and work my way up. The tails are usually thinner at the bottom, so you can start with the whole tail at the bottom and then work your way up in pieces as you go. Gidget's got a decently thick tail. It's not extra thick, so it doesn't take too long to get through. But I'm going to start at the bottom, brush it against my leg, staying off to the side. I am talking the whole time so she can hear me. If I wasn't doing a video, I'd probably still be talking to her, letting her know that I'm back here, carrying on a conversation, asking her how her day went. Was her hay to her liking today? Would she like a massage tomorrow? Anything special we can do? Actually, she can't get massages because of her melanoma. So we'd have to find something extra special to give her. So I check in with her, see how her day is doing. All the time while I'm back here, brushing her tail so that we can be nice and pretty. Now, some tails will roll just like you saw in her mane. You're going to approach those the same as you're going to approach the same way you're going to approach those as you did on the mane. So you're going to undo the rolls, smooth them out, and then brush them through. So when I start at the bottom, I have all the knots out of the bottom, and as I work my way up, then I'm only working out the new knots, and I'm not running old knots into new knots. So I'm going to work my way all the way through, standing off to the side, making sure that I just take my time. I don't want to pull too hard, yank too hard. If there hits a spot where I feel it's better to section it off. Then I'll section it off and work in little sections and work all the way through brushing her tail. Now it's important again to remember to stay off to the side, not behind her. I know I'm a little bit behind her, but I'm trying to be in the right position for the camera. And it's not right. It doesn't necessarily mean it's better, but I'm very comfortable with Gidget. I have had her again since she was a 2-year-old, so we know each other. We're very comfortable with each other. In fact, Gidget was my first pony. I bought her when I was 20, and she was my first horse. And she was diagnosed with melanoma 15 years ago or so. So she's been retired for a while. She's continued to work in the beginning. And then as the melanomas got bigger, she got uncomfortable. So she gets to be a lazy pony and just be pretty. Right, baby girl. Yeah. Now, when working on the tail, it's important to remember that you get underneath as well as the top of that tail. So there's more to brushing that tail if you want to do a really good, thorough job than just getting the top of it. The underneath part can sometimes be the stickiest part to do. There. So now Gidget's tail is all brushed out and pretty. It's nice and smooth. Can run my fingers all the way through it. She's got a big tail, so it took a little time, but a little bit of patience, a little bit of leave-in conditioner, and a little bit of elbow grease, and her tail is gorgeous and flowing.